Okay, hello and welcome back to the video. Okay, in this video, we'll go through the basic environment of the GBC notebook. But before doing that, I am going to open up my Python, my Anaconda's application. So this is what I do when I set up my Anaconda application. I just go to my browser, go to the home page, and go to all of this to my application. Then go to Anaconda, should be at the top, right over here. Drop this down, and you'll see your Anaconda navigator. Then go all the way to your Jupyter notebook. Right click and run, right? Or double tap and run, whichever you feel. I just do this. When I run this, I get this window opened up. And once you get this window opened up, you know your Anaconda is actively running. You get this and this, right? Okay, so we know our Anaconda is actively running, right? So the next thing we are going to have to do is go to your settings, which I'm gonna have to do today, is go to your settings right over here. Go to your, go to here, it's gonna pop you up over here, right? Once you're in this environment, you can it pops you. Let me go to the stats. This is where it's going to pop you up. This is actually the root of your user folder, right? If you go to the the user of your file manager, let's go to that. Hmm? So this is your PC. Go to this. Go to your user directory, right? Then go to the name of your PC, which is mine is there. This is where you're going to be propped up, right over there. If you notice, you see this file is this file. So now I will simply go to any of my folder here, or I create a new folder, go to new folder, and I get a new folder, right? So create a new folder, and I get my new folder. I'm going to go to one of my folders and click on this. I'm going to have this. Then what I need to do is simply press on the new to create a new Python notebook file. You click on the new, go to Python 3, click that up, and it opens up a new Python notebook file, right? So now that we know how to open up our Jupyter and our Python notebook file, we need to know how the environment essentially works. So the first thing you have is your file. Your file that allows you to open a new notebook file, open an existing notebook file, make a copy, save your file, rename your file, and save the checkpoint of your file. Then the last thing that is really important is to save your file either as a PDF, notebook, or HTML, which I do from time to time. And so if you're going to print your file out, you can click on the preview and it will give you a preview of how the file looks at when it is printed out. Okay, so you can basically print out your file from here. Okay, so the next thing we have to do is to go over to the edit, where you see how to cut a cell. This is a cell. This right here is a cell. This is where you write your Python code, right? So you write your Python code and everything works out. Let's just set it out. So this write your code. Let's do print bro, bro. Okay, just put Python here and run this. You get your Python code right here. You also can switch this to markup. Right, markups are words that does not run as code. Right, so you can see this is a markup. Then you can also switch to raw NB convert, which I don't use tend to use. Then this heading is basically markup, a shorter way to do your markups if that is what you want to do. Okay, I don't necessarily use this. I just use markups and code. Okay, so this is a cell. You can cut your cell, go to here and cut Control X, Control C, Control V, Shift V, Shift, then V on its own, then DD to delete, Z to undo, and this is to mesh two cells together and to mesh it, the cell above. This is to mesh the cell below, which I did here, and to move cell up, to move cell down, and to edit the notebook metadata. And this is notebook's metadata. which you can actually exit from here. Okay, so I'm not going to do that. Go to here. And the last thing we need to know is how to find and replace items on our list, on our notebook. Called cell attachment. I don't necessarily use this a lot. Insert an image, right? You could do this from here, or you can just insert your image from using the notebook. Just copy the image and paste it here. But if you're inserting from your system, you can also do that as well. Okay, so we know how to. Okay, before we go any further, let me just show you how to use some of the shortcuts. Okay, to cut your file, let me use. Click on your cell. Make sure you are seeing this blue. Then press the C shortcut, Control, then V shortcut. You have pasted it. To cut it, X shortcut and V shortcut. To cut and paste. And to use any of the shortcuts here, you make sure that your cell is highlighted blue. Then you can do that. Delete DD, and I'm done with that. So the next thing we're going to look at is view. So the view allows you to toggle the way this environment generally looks like, right? So you can toggle your header, toggle your task bar, toggle your line numbers, and your cell format, okay? So let me just toggle this a bit, okay? Then I'll toggle it back on. So your insert allows you to insert a cell above or a cell below. I just tend to use just the shortcut, which is B and A, okay? So the next thing is your cell. This allows you to run your cell, right? Maybe you've written any code, you can go to here to run it, which I don't do. So you have your run cell below. That's all the cells that are below the cell you've highlighted. Run all the cells that are above. Then run all cell. Run up all above, run below. Then cell type. You can change the type from code to. Okay, code is the shortcut for code is Y. Shortcut for markdown is M. Shortcut for raw is R. Your current output, so you can toggle that out, right? Or you can clear it if you want to. Then all your output you can toggle and clear. Okay, so that's basically that for your cell. And necessarily you just need to know the shortcut, which I normally do. Is Control Enter to run the cell and execute everything there, or Control Shift Enter to run the cell and go down, select the one below. The next one is Alt Enter to run the cell and insert below, right? Okay, so that is basically all you need to know about the cell. We shall be using this shortcut a lot of the time. So the next thing is your kernel. This is the interpreter, right? This is what actually runs your code, and you can easily, if you're having an issue, maybe a loop issue where you have an infinite loop, you can just interrupt or restart, or then you have a restart and clear, which restart the entire kernel and it clears out all the outputs. Restart and run on it, restart the entire kernel, right, the entire interpreter, and run each of the cells for you. You have your reconnect in case maybe you shut down your system or you closed your this and you restart it. You don't have to go to another, you don't have to start from starting. You can just have your notebook already on and do your reconnect. You have your shutdown and your change kernel, which I don't necessarily use. You have your widgets, which is not that important to know. Then you have your help, which allows you to get more insight on how this entire process works. So if you want to learn more about Markdown, you can go here, which I have done, and it's very helpful. And any other thing you want to learn, you can just click on here and learn more. For your shortcuts, you click here, you see all the shortcuts that we have, and you can memorize them. Okay, so you've learned how to use the toolbar. Now let's use these buttons here. So this first button to save is shortcut for save. It's just your shortcut for things that are inside of your menu bar here. You have your save, you have your add a new cell, you have your cuts, your cell, which I just use the shortcut. You have your paste, okay, cut, copy, then paste, move up, move down, move a cell up, move a cell down, then you can run a cell. From here, you can delete, you can stop your kernel here. You can restart your kernel here. You can restart the kernel and run all here. Right? And here you can easily change the types of value, right? That the cell can take. The cell type can be a code, a markdown, or a raw NB converts. Okay. Then this you have your command palette, right? Which you can change your cell and so on and so forth. Okay. So this just shows all the commands you've done so far. So this is basically how the Jupyter Notebook file actually work. So in this next section, we would go over the syntax and command of your Python. Okay. Now let's go to. Let me just delete this. Don't really need it anymore. Click and delete. Okay, delete this. Not necessary anymore. Just close this up and we are done with that. Okay. Okay, so welcome back to the video, and in this video we'll talk about the syntax of Python. What does the syntax mean? Syntax simply means how the program is written, right? How the program is meant to be written. If you don't write it the way it's supposed to be written, it is going to give you an error. It's basically like English language. If you don't write your English language the way it is meant to be written, it's not going to be correct. Okay? So, in this video, we will talk about the syntax in Python and we'll learn how to write Python code the right way. So, let's get started. Second, since the filter this noise for you by itself.
As you play music, so you know the effect.
You know the show. Okay, I won't start. Not talk again. You might not get. Okay. Okay, welcome back to the video, and we'll start with the syntax in Python. So before we get started, we need to let me start my entire kernel and restart all. Okay. So the first line of code all developers tends to write is the hello world code. Simply do that to print. This print simply allows you to output any phrase or evaluation or calculation to your output, right? Now I'm going to go a little bit further and I'm going to say hello the universe, okay? So we've printed out your hello world and hello data analyst and so on and so forth, okay? So this is just an introduction to what Python can actually do for you. So before we get started, let me give you some of the key points regarding Python syntax. The first thing you need to know about Python is it uses indentation to define blocks of code. What do I mean by a block of code? Basically, a block of code is a code that runs as one, right? So this is an if statement. It has these lines of code that are a part of it. Similarly, I can say this code are inside of this line, right? That's what it means to be a block of code. And to establish a new block, you put in this colon, followed by your space, your indent, using your tab or 4 spaces, and you get your indentation. So when I run this, let me say, okay, if y is equals to 10 and if y is equals to 10, then check if y is equals to 10, then print this particular thing, y is equals to 10, then print high. When I run this and play this, I'm getting yes and high. So if I remove this from here, right, I run this, I'm still going to get the same result, yes and high. But if I'm to change this to 1, for example, now this if statement is still the open of this block statement, which is this is inside the block. This particular statement is inside of this block. So now that the y is not 10, right, this is no longer true. When I run this, I won't be getting this print y is equal to 10 because this statement that is inside this block will no longer execute because this condition is no longer true. We get to understand more about conditional statement when we get to control flows. So the next key point you need to understand about Python syntax is that Python consists of what is called statements and expression. Expressions are instructions that perform actions such as assign a variable or call functions, while expression evaluates to a value, right? So this is a statement because we are simply assigning a value to x. Then this is also a statement because it, in a way, performs a pseudo function, a kind of a function. Right? This is also a statement because it performs a simple function. It doesn't evaluate anything to true, right? So this statement is an if statement. This is a loop statement, a for loop statement to be precise. While these are expressions because they evaluate to a particular value. Okay? So this result is 3 plus 2, which is 5, times 5, which is 25. So let's just run this and get our answers. And run this, we get a single value. Okay? So this results to this particular value, which is going to be the sum of this. This results to true or false. Result greater than 10, probably not. So it's going to result to false. And this results to another expression because it results to a particular value. So let me just print all of this. Print results, print is greater. Then lastly, print the length. Print your length. Length. So when I run this, you're going to get all the values, which is, this should be 25, okay? 25 is greater than 10. And the length of this hello is 5 characters, okay? So the next thing you need to understand about Python is Python syntax is white space sensitive. This means that space and tabs are significant, especially when it comes to doing your indentation, right? You need to understand that spaces and tabs are very, very significant. Okay, so to get the point across, if I run this and say I do something like this, it's my tab, I do a tab, then I do add a space to it, it's going to run, obviously. But if I come over here and say print, then wrong space. If you notice what I did here, I added an extra space to this one. When I try to run this, I'm going to get an instant error on indents. Do not smash. So this space is affecting the entirety of my results, right? So I have to make sure my space are the same all through. Okay, press Shift, Ctrl, Enter. Okay, the error now has fixed this one here. Then another indentation error you see is this. This is my if statement, right? And this is supposed to be a block, right? It's a block of code, which means it has to have an indentation for it to be associated with this particular if statement block. So when I run this, it's going to give me an error, incorrect indent, result in an indentation error, right? So Python is very particular about its spaces, its tabs. So the last one I would like to show you is, let's see, this should work now. Enter. Okay, let's see. Okay, I think this is the error we are getting. This is now a syntax error. Okay, so we pretty much fixed this particular one. Then the last thing I want to show you is this when it comes to indentation error. So if I say y is equals to 2 and now give a space, x is equals to 4. Let me run this. You see that there is an error because this space is not supposed to be so. It's supposed to just be, everything should be in one line when you're writing your Python code. You don't give unnecessary space. So space, indentation, tabs, they all matter in writing Python code. So the next thing you need to understand is you can write your statements all at the same time, right? Using your semicolon. If you want to write all your statements like I did here, I had to separate everything into different lines. But if you want to put them in the same line, you have to just put your semicolon after each of them and it will give you the correct values for each of them. If I remove this and try to run this, I'm going to get an error instantly, the syntax error. So let me just undo and run. Let's go to undo. I need to click on the undo, then control and enter, run it. Remember, I said Python does not require your semicolon to terminate a statement like some programming language do. Instead, you simply use a new line to terminate that particular statement. However, when a multi-statement appeared in the same line, you have to separate them using a semicolon. Okay. So the next thing we need to understand in Python is how to use comments. So essentially, comments allows us to document our code and to debug our code. So as a good programmer, you need to understand how to document a code. Make sure your code is well written. And the way we document codes in Python is we use this asterisk, this pound sign, hashtag sign, followed by whatever you want to write. Anything you write inside of here that would have normally given you an error will be ignored by your interpreter. Let me run this. So I'm getting an error, a syntax error, because it's reading this statement and it's assigning it as a valid syntax. But this is just a documentation of what this is doing, what's going on down here. You just have to put this inside the quotes, a dollar sign, and a pound sign, and I'm good to go. So that is how you use your comments. So you can place your comments at the top here, or you can place it after a particular statement. The only thing you don't do after your comments is adding, once you put your pound sign there, it's adding an expression you want to run after it. That is the only thing that you cannot do with your comments. So anything you put in comments will automatically not be read by the Python interpreter. To do multi-line comments, this is the one way to do that. Just add your hashtag to each of the word that is going to be commented out. Or you can simply just do a triple quotes, right? Like this, and place the words in there. Let's call this. Hi, I am a comment. This also would work. When I run this, I'm not going to get any error as you got to this, but I don't prefer using this because in actuality it is being read by the interpreter, but since this is a string that is not assigned, it will not cause any error whatsoever. So the next thing you will need to talk about in Python is what is called data Python variables. So variables are used to store data values in Python. Right? They allow you to label and reference values, making your code more readable and maintainable. So what you need to do is think of labels as like a container where you can store different values and different data types into. And whenever you want to get that data or that value, you can reference to the container and the container will simply pull out that value for you. That's the best way to look at your variable. So a variable is created the moment you assign a value to it. Right? So let's look at this. This particular word is this x right here is a variable. We assign 5 to it. So anytime we want to get this 5, we can just reference to the x and it will automatically give us the 5. So let's print it out to our terminal. Okay, we've got x, y, and print that into our terminal and get the correct value for those ones. In Python, you don't need to declare your variables before you use them. Once you want to use the variable, all you simply have to do is to assign the value to that variable and you will be able to use that variable completely. So variable, another thing to know about variable is that a variable can take in any data type. You also don't need to declare the data type that that variable should take. Automatically, once you assign a variable to a value to a variable, it automatically takes in the data type. It's like a container that changes shape based on the content or the item that is placed in the container. So that's basically how variables work in Python. So there are some rules when it comes to creating your variable. Right? A variable name can have a short name like x, y, or a very long and descriptive name. Right? The variable must start with a letter or an underscore. A variable cannot start with a number. A variable can only contain alphanumericals. Right? These are your alphanumericals A to Z and 0 to 1 and your underscore. Your variable name is case sensitive, meaning this age, this age, this age, they are all three different names and three different variables. You want to learn more about variables, once you get this material, you can click on this, take you to a page where you see more more variables and more rules that concerns variable. But basically, this is the gist of variables. And you can't start with a number, like I said, and you can't have special characters. Is that included here? Okay, basically, this is it. Special characters like hashtag, arts cannot be in your variable. Okay, so this is the correct variable. This is a correct variable. This is correct, right? This is correct. This is correct. When I run this, I will not get any error. So, but you starting your variable with a number is not correct. Adding a special character like this is not correct. Including space in your variable is not correct. Starting a, let's go, let me show you something else. Adding like an @ symbol to your variable is also not correct. So let me run this. Right? You see that each of them are not correct. Let me just comment them out one by one. See, they are not correct, not correct, not correct, and so on and so forth. Right? So you can see that my variable have to follow these rules in order to be considered as a valid variable. So variables, giving your variable name can be a little bit complex, right? But you have to give your variable a descriptive name that defines what is stored inside of that variable to the best degree possible. And to ensure your variable has the right naming, you have to use, there are three ways to go about it. You can use the camel case, which simply means the first word as a small letter, then the second word as a capital letter, starts with a capital letter, and so on and so forth until the name is completed. And we mostly use this when we are defining functions, right? This is used when you're defining functions. The next one is called the Pascal case. That means each new words are capitalized. The first letter of each new words are capitalized. We mostly use this when we are defining a class, when we are creating our own class. Then the next one is your snake case, where each new word is separated by an underscore. We tend to use this when we are working with a random variable, like a variable expression or an expression or a statement, right? It's, that's what we use the snake casing. Okay. So things like this are use your snake case when you're assigning a new value to a variable, just an empty value like this, use your snake case. So you can also assign multiple values to different variables all at once by using the comma to separate each of the variable items and also adding the values to those items, right? So when I do this and run, I'm going to get each of them assigned. So the first one is assigned to the first one, second to the second, third to the third, and so on and so forth. So if I were to do this and try and run, I'm going to get an error because I have three variables and just two values, which is not going to work. Okay, so if you want to assign one values to multiple variables, you can use the equal to. You can say x is equal to, the best way I like to look at it is what z is equal to, the z value is equals to orange, right? In this example, then now the value of orange is now reassigned to y, which is also now reassigned to z. So all of them will be assigned to the same values in memory. Okay, so you have orange, orange, orange. So this is a tuple unpacking. It simply means the values here can be assigned to separate variable names. So we'll do more on this when we get to tuples. I'll learn to unpack tuples in the various ways that we do unpack tuples. To output your variable, you use the print function, which we have been working with all this time. To get to see what is inside the variable, you can use the print function and it will work perfectly. And you can combine multiple items with your print function. You can have x, comma y, comma z, and it will run perfectly for us. Let's run this. You're going to get Python is awesome. As you can see, it automatically adds in space for you. Automatically adds in space. When you are combining multiple items using this method, it's going to add space for you. But when you're using this method, you have to add in your space yourself. Because this is like adding this plus this plus this. It's just going to add them. If I don't put in my space, let me do this, and I run this, it's going to add all of them together as a single item. So I have to come back and include my space for everything to run perfectly. So this plus also works with numbers, but it evaluates the number, right? It calculates and evaluates the number. Okay, so you're going to get 20. But if I try to do this with an integer and a string value, it's going to give me an error because I cannot combine an integer to string value without actually converting them from one value to another value. So the best way to output multiple values with multiple data types is to use the comma and you get your answer, your values correctly. So far we've learned how the Python syntax works. We've also learned how to assign variable, create variable, and you've learned the basics of comments, how to create comments, and why you need to learn how to create comments. So you've learned the basics of Python, and I would encourage you to practice what you've learned so far in order to get it to stick to you and to be able to use it for your data analysis processes. So thank you very much, and I'll see you in the next video.